What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another FPL video. Norwich have put out a statement today which basically tells us that they and Chelsea are pretty likely to have a double game week in game week 28, which is obviously the next deadline. We're still kind of waiting for game week 27 to finish. It's nearly done, but there's so much chance of this happening that I thought I would do a video on it. It's still possible that it doesn't, and I'll talk about why that might be in a minute, but it looks pretty likely that it will. So what they've said, and I have kind of paraphrased and shortened the statement down a little bit because there's a lot of stuff we don't need in there from an FPL point of view. Norwich City's Premier League fixture at home to Chelsea in March, basically game week 30, will be rearranged should either side progress in the FA Cup this week. So there's Premier League obviously at the weekend, plus the Carabao Cup final, and then midweek there's FA Cup fixtures, right? It's the FA Cup 5th round. Should either side progress from the FA Cup 5th round, the match will be rearranged for Thursday, March the 10th. That is game week 28, so that's the deadline we're going into. So if you've got transfers and stuff, or you're thinking about wildcarding, maybe just hold off a little bit, wait until the FA Cup fixtures are done, because not only will we then know if Chelsea and Norwich are going to double, but we'll also know who's definitely going to blank in game week 30 as well. So the midweek fixtures this week are going to give us a lot of information, right, from the FA Cup. Now, the reason that I've made the video in advance of the FA Cup matches being played is because Chelsea are playing Luton Town, so you're going to assume that they probably win. Norwich have got a much tougher fixture. They play Liverpool. If they were to beat Liverpool, or if Chelsea were to beat Luton, that match in game week 30 would then be off, and it's going to be played in game week 28, right? So that's basically confirmed. So there could be a shock upset, right? And Luton could beat Chelsea, and Liverpool will likely beat Norwich as well. And then the game will still be played in game week 30. But you've got to imagine that Chelsea will win. That's why it's looking so likely there will be a double game week. So the double would be, for Chelsea, Burnley away and Norwich away in game week 28. That's pretty decent, right? I think a lot of people would like a defender, especially if, and I'm recording this before the Carabao Cup final, if Reece James plays and he looks good, he looks fit, and Tuchel doesn't say there's any issues or anything like that, then people are going to be strongly looking to get him in, and obviously Rudiger and other players as well. The Norwich one obviously isn't quite so good because it gets Chelsea added, but as I'll come on to their fixture on in a minute, maybe Pukki is possibly an option now. Got 2 fixtures in 28 and then a pretty nice fixture run afterwards. So these would be the extra fixtures that would be added into game week 28 along with these teams as well, right? We already know that Wolves, Watford, Southampton, Newcastle, who are doubling in 28 and 29, obviously Leeds and Villa are all doubling as well, and then it would add these fixtures in too. So there'll be a couple of extra teams that would also have a double game week. So realistically, I think if you've wildcarded already, if you went with the wildcard game week 26 strategy, okay, it's not ideal that you probably haven't got many Chelsea players. Some people probably put one in just in case they got a double because it was looking likely. And to be fair, that kind of foresight is looking pretty good right now. But I don't know if we need to massively panic because it's not like, in my opinion anyway, I don't think there's like 3 standout Chelsea players that are so good we're going to be annoyed about the players we've already got in our teams, especially if you're prepared for that. Obviously, if you're on a game week 28 wildcard, this is really helpful because you can choose which Chelsea players you want. It might push some people into free hitting as well in 28 or 29, but it's very hard to say whether that's a good strategy because it is really going to be team dependent. And I would assume if you're not going for like these teams, Wolves in particular, Leeds and Villa, if you're not going for them and you're free hitting in 28, well, therefore you don't have those players for game week 30 either. So that might, people that free hit in 28 might be forced to free hit in 30 as well, or have a very difficult time managing both. So it'd be interesting to see what people do. So that's all the fixtures that are going to be added. So then the fixture run looks like this. So for Chelsea, they would have the double, Burnley away, Norwich away, straight into Newcastle at home. They would miss their game in game week 30. Bearing in mind, this double in 28 can only happen if Chelsea and Norwich both miss their game week 30 fixture, right? So it'd be a double, then Newcastle, then a blank, then Brentford at home, which to be honest probably should be a green fixture, I think, for Chelsea, and Southampton away as well. So the fixture run is pretty nice for Chelsea. We've been talking about this fixture swing in game week 28 for them for a little while too. So it looks kind of ideal if you wanted Chelsea players. For Norwich, this is why I said don't completely write it off as an option. Brentford at home is decent. Okay, Chelsea at home is the extra fixture. That's not ideal, but it's still extra appearance points, maybe the outside chance of some points against Chelsea as well. Then it's Leeds, which is a great fixture. Obviously, Bielsa has now been sacked or he's left by mutual consent, whichever one it ends up being. I've been out this today, so I've not checked the lead statement. I just know that Bielsa is gone. So maybe they'll be more difficult to break down. But I think right now it would be too soon to just say that's now going to be a difficult fixture, because given how their defence has been, I can't imagine that will be the case. Then they would miss their game in game week 30. Then it's Brighton away and Burnley at home. So the fixtures aren't that bad, right? So as a shortlist goes, Pukki is probably the only one that I would ever really consider from Norwich. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't have enablers in your team like Gilmore, maybe Brandon Williams or someone like that. But in terms of someone I actually would want to play, Pukki is probably the one. And I haven't completely written him off as an option. For my team, right, I don't need to make many changes this week, because obviously I wildcarded in 26 to prepare. But at some point, I am probably going to want to downgrade a striker to someone a lot cheaper. Could be Weghorst, but I think Pukki's an option as well. So if you're someone who's looking to maybe get a cheaper frontline, someone you can bench most weeks but has okay fixtures, all I'm saying is don't completely write off Pukki. I know for most people he's not going to be an option, but that's it. That's what I'm saying on Norwich. For Chelsea, the list is a bit longer. I don't know if I'd put Mendy in. Maybe if it was on a free hit, but Kepa is always going to just play that odd game, and it's just going to be really annoying when it happens. So I think Mendy is an option, but if Kepa played one of the games in 28, or maybe played the 29 fixture, or the 31 or the 32, I don't think you could be shocked if that happened. Rudiger probably seems like the most safe nailed defender right now. Obviously, if everyone was fit, we'd all be looking at Chilwell and Reece James for sure. But I think Rudiger right now is probably the safest option in defence. Reece James, depending on fitness, my only concern would be even if he does play in the final, and let's say he starts the final, is he then going to play 2 back-to-back fixtures in the Premier League as well? Will his fitness have returned that much? Maybe, and maybe it's a risk worth taking because of how good he is. And arguably, given the captain options now in game week 28, right, if you want to go for a double game week player, let's say you don't want to go for Salah, well, Jimenez has just been benched against West Ham. Again, I'm recording this during the match, right, and they're not playing that well, so maybe he gets back in. It could have just been because of the games in quick succession. But I don't know if we now want to captain him in 28. Rafinha maybe, Coutinho if you own him. The options aren't that great. So Reece James, if you thought he was going to play both games, is not a bad captain. It's a shame neither of those fixtures are at home, but he's decent enough. Then you've got, in my opinion, you've just got minutes worries. Like, I don't know, Chelsea fans, let me know in the comments below. But I just feel like Ziyech, Mount and Lukaku, I just don't know how much you can rely on them starting kind of week in, week out. Like, for that, like, let's say they do get the double, and then they play Newcastle. How many of those 3 players are going to play all 3 of those games? Like, Lukaku in particular, again, let's see if he starts the final. Maybe that will change everything. But I just don't think he's a great pick for the amount of money he is. And bearing in mind, a lot of the players that you sell in 28, if you're not on wildcard, some of them have then got a double in 29. So, for example, for me, I'd have to sell Van Dijk for James or Van Dijk for Rudiger. So I'd get the double in 28, but I'd lose it in 29. Similarly, if you've got Kane up front, for example, who's playing pretty well, I think, at the moment, if you swap him to Lukaku to get Burnley away and Norwich away, okay, that's fine. But then you miss Kane's double in 29. Now, it is worth saying that Spurs' double is not as good. I think it's Brighton and Man United. But ultimately, Kane's nailed 90 minutes, penalties. Lukaku isn't. So I think there's, like, if I was bringing in a midfielder this week for 28, let's say, obviously, Chelsea get the double, etc. That's the whole point we're doing the video. Would I take Ziyech? Would I take Mount? Or would I just go for Coutinho, who's got to play Leeds in game week 28, definitely plays in game week 30. Okay, the fixtures after that aren't great. But is he a better option because of minutes over Ziyech or Mount? He might be. I think this is one of those fixtures which is so good, Burnley away, Norwich away, and obviously they are playing for a good team in Chelsea, right? 3rd best team in the league. If you can nail the right players, it's going to be great. It's just not necessarily going to be easy to do. So for me, I think Rudiger stands out. James, if he's fit, then maybe one of the attackers if you really want to go for it. Outside of that, I don't think there's a huge amount of options. Like Thiago Silva, but again, will he play all those games? I don't know. It would just worry me a little bit. If I'm already worried about it, is it worth the risk for a player then that I've got to keep long term? So I won't go into too much more detail because I think chip strategy and stuff like that really is kind of team dependent. And a lot of the players that are kind of doubling in 28 are kind of handy for game week 30 anyway. So I don't know if we need like triple ups on Chelsea, but if you're free hitting, it could be decent. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this kind of announcement, right? It's all going to depend on the FA Cup, but I'm pretty sure Chelsea are going to beat Luton, and this will happen. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll be back tomorrow for some more videos. And of course, the stream later on this evening.